Facepalm America, I'm Beowulf Franklin. Facepalmamerica.com is where, as always, you can go to get more information about the show. It's a fun place on that thing that you may have visited recently, the internet. You know, that thing that we're constantly on, constantly scanning and realizing that there are horrible, horrible things that are happening out there. And now, in all fairness, I did do an episode about how Republicans in Missouri did a slightly good thing in terms of introducing a bill to eliminate the death penalty. So every once in a rare while, something good happens, even in the political realm, even in the United States, even applying to the right wing of this country. But it is very rare. So if you want to go to something good where there is humor involved and keeping yourself up to date on the news, Facepalm America is a place where you can do that. Also, if you are interested in a wonderful encapsulation of the week in politics from a progressive perspective, the place to go is This Week Again, which is a weekly politics podcast that drops every Sunday and is hosted by Susanne Posel. Susanne Posel, welcome back to Facepalm America. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So, I was scanning that whole internet thing today, and I was a little disappointed. You know, I'm often disappointed in places like, Florida and Texas, and Florida we'll actually get to later in the program because there is reason to be disappointed in that state where I lived for a year, and I know you lived for a long time as well. But I'm a little disappointed in Oregon today because I knew that the Oregon Supreme Court was considering taking Trump off the ballot, as both Colorado and Maine had decided to do at various points, and they decided not to do it. Now, they did it for kind of legalistic reasons. It's not because necessarily they didn't want to or because they didn't think it was the right thing to do legally. They did it because the Supreme Court of the United States is considering some of these challenges. And as a result, they decided, well, we better just wait until they make their ruling. Now, the Supreme Court of the United States, as we know, has been packed. It's been packed full of badness by Donald Trump and all of the appointees that he managed to get through. And so we have a situation where it is very likely that they're going to say, A-OK, big guy. It's okay. You can just go ahead, in spite of the fact that you've been involved in an insurrection, and go on those ballots, even though the Constitution explicitly prohibits that. So I'm worried about the situation, and I wish that my home state had been a little bit more proactive. That's all I wish. So
it's not too much to ask, but from a legal standpoint, I understand it's not satisfying what I'm about to say. I apologize, but to stave off any challenges that Trump is known to keep things in the courts as long as possible so he can do whatever he wants in between. I think that's why they're doing it.
I get it.
On the flip side of that, I completely agree with your fear and, concern. I think is warranted because Neil Gorsuch and I like Beer Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, along with Clarence Thomas and
who doesn't seem to be likely to recuse himself. By the way, even though his wife was up to her eyebrows in this particular insurrection.
She was an insurrectionist planner. I think she should put that on her resume going forward.
Yeah. Now, that would be a good CV if she ever wants to, work for the Heritage Foundation or, some other group like that. That would be a good way of identifying her. But you see, it really, if there were any morality in the Supreme Court, and even, I'm trying to remember, we had a guest on that was saying that in some previous case, even Rehnquist, recused himself when he felt he had a conflict of interest. How you could not feel that way if your wife was directly involved in the events of January 6th is just beyond me. It's just corruption, pure and simple. I shouldn't be shocked at it. That's what it amounts to. He's been paid a lot of money by groups associated with this whole movement, and so that's what he's going to do. And he has been bought off. He has been bribed, and we should just call it what it is. That's what it amounts to. So
Yeah, it's just corruption puddle, and that's how deep he goes.
yeah,
And it is purely for the Benjamins. It's absolutely for the money and the prestige. And look what it's gotten him.
yeah.
So why not? Right?
Yeah,
wait. Some people have morals and never mind. Anyway, yeah.
Morals, yeah. He's part of the moral majority, right? You know, it's so interesting the way that they have twisted words, the right wing, over the last couple of generations. It's just so disgusting. They're supposed to be supporting family values. Well, no, they don't actually support kids once they are alive, once they are out of the womb. They don't have any interest in applying the moral marital standards that they would impose on everyone else to themselves, and they certainly have no interest whatsoever in following, the rule of law, which they tout so much, or the idea of states' rights, which they've touted so much. It's just very clearly a play for power by whatever means necessary. And
yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
please.
Absolutely. So to basically prove how simple this is, that it is just for corruption's sake. In 2017, and this always brings me back to this study. There was a study conducted and peer-reviewed by the University of Ontario. And what this study showed is people who are put in positions of power, whether it's the supervisor at the Starbucks or the president of the United States, it has a real, tangible, malleable effect on our brains. Wow. The longer we stay in those positions, it actually rewires our brain. It reduces the amount of empathy that we feel, and it makes us feel insecure about our power. And therefore, it causes us to do things to protect it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when, Lord Acton said power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely, it literally rewires your brain. So Clarence Thomas is just an example of this phenomenon in real time.
It's interesting. I can picture sort of a la the Grinch, a cutaway, not of Clarence's heart, but of his brain, and it being, as time goes by, as his power increases, as the amount of money he receives from the right wing increases, his brain, sort of like shriveling and corrupting in time lapse, so that it sort of bears the appearance of the picture of Dorian Gray or something by the time you get to 2024. That would be. I don't do animation. But, if anybody wants to take that idea and run with it, I absolutely welcome that, and they may have that idea. Speaking of corruption, speaking of hypocrisy, I read a story. It didn't seem to have made the national news because it doesn't have to do with the horse race that's going on in Iowa, and it doesn't have to do with anything directly that Donald Trump is doing atrocity-wise. But it does have to do with the party that he has captured. It has to do with the states that they rule. And there are 15 Republican-controlled states that have now said no. Again, I understand the forces behind this, but the brazenness and nonsensical nature of this just boggles my mind. 15 GOP-controlled states have said no to federal dollars to feed hungry children. It's
pro-lifers.
I know, pro-lifers. Family
all
values.
For the children.
They don't want to feed. They don't want to take free money from the federal government to help feed hungry children. They are literally taking action that harms children and completely contradicts the so-called fiscal conservative values that they support. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, it's completely
They
ridiculous.
do not give a flying fork about it.
No, not at
No,
all.
not one damn child. They care about protecting the fetus at the extent that it controls the woman.
Exactly.
But once that baby is born, it is on its MF own. It really is.
Yes.
And we're talking about Alabama, Alaska, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Vermont, Texas.
Vermont? Oh, no.
South Dakota. North Dakota got their crap together, but South Dakota, what the fuck? Nebraska, South Carolina. South Carolina, you are not sending your best between Nikki Haley, who denies her Pakistani heritage, and Nancy Mace with, oh, good Lord. And now you won't feed hungry children? What the actual?
Yeah.
South Carolina, are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you need better help? What's going on?
Well, I mean, they were big supporters of slavery in the past, and I think slowly but surely they want to work themselves back there, through a combination of restricting rights and calorie control. Vermont, oh my gosh, I had not noticed that the first pass around. I think they have. Unless I'm mistaken, I think they have a Republican governor. I don't know there must be some weird local stuff going on in Vermont for that to happen, because obviously Peter Welch and Bernie Sanders are both representing that state in the U.S. Senate. But that's just nutty that Vermont should be in there. No state should be in there. Other than that, it seems like kind of round up the usual suspects in terms of states that don't care about children.
Not only that, but kids I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, so I know their caloric intake is based daily on what they're expelling. And it has to not only to do with their physical, what they're doing physically, but also their stress levels.
Yeah.
And as they go, forward in education, that goes up dramatically.
High school is a little bit of a stressful time. Yeah.
I remember it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So South Carolina, I'm talking to you, you are 45th. The bottom of the barrel when it comes to education. Your kids can't get a good education, and now you're going to take food away from them so they don't have the energy to even pay attention to the bad education you're giving them.
Yeah. I mean, taking
Make it make sense. Do you care about the future of this country? Because literally those children in 20 years are going to be the next workforce. What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah. I mean, these really are kind of like Victorian figures. I mean, Ebenezer Scrooge is about the level that they're on. They really have like no concern for humanity beyond their, immediate persons and purview. They don't really see the world, and I guess this speaks to the sort of neurological shift that the people experience when they get into positions of power. They don't care. They don't have the empathy. They can't. They can't experience it. And so that is why it is necessary to keep people from gaining that sort of power, to prevent them from being insulated from people. And when you have the sorts of systems that they have in these states and many places across the country, and indeed to an extent across the United States with things like the Electoral College that were incorporated into the very structure of this country, you have people who are not answerable. You have people that because of the way things are gerrymandered and they don't really have responsive. They're not responsive to voters because they know they don't have to be, and so they get a sense of power and they end up doing things like this because they're not looking at things as human beings. They're looking at things as powerful agents. And I think what you said earlier absolutely applies to this. I can't see an ordinary human being ever making a decision like this. It's unfathomable to me. Which speaks to the fact that I don't have any power and have not undergone that neurological change.
Well, I think that we need to, a lot of places in this country, and not just, people in power, they're probably not going to take a look, but the rest of us, I think we should take a look at what St. Paul, Minnesota just did. Mm-hmm. So they elected a 7-member body to their city council. all of them are under 40.